New leadership and a new coronavirus plan. I'm Adrienne Pedersen, today on Upfront.
This is a wartime undertaking.
President Joe Biden's national COVID-19 strategy.
When we face such big crises that we need bold action.
Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin on the president's ambitious goals. Plus, Wisconsin opens up vaccinations to people 65 and older. Will vaccine meet demand? And the future of the GOP in the post-President Trump era.
So what does it mean to be not just a Republican, but a conservative?
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
We will get through this. We will defeat this pandemic.
President Joe Biden signed a slew of executive orders on COVID-19 action. The virus has now killed 400,000 Americans, and the president says we could see 500,000 deaths within weeks. The new president has a goal of administering 100 million vaccinations in 100 days. He also asked the American people to wear masks for the next 100 days and says that can save 50,000 lives by spring. He'll use the Defense Production Act to expand vaccine production. And he said that every state will have a COVID response liaison, its own point person at the federal level. President Biden promised a COVID response based on science, free from political interference.
The honest truth is we're still in a dark winter of this pandemic. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to take many months to get where we need to be.
We also learned Friday that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will send the article of impeachment for President Trump over to the Senate tomorrow, and that the Senate impeachment trial will begin the week of February 8th. I talked to Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin on Friday.
We need to make sure that we are able to do several things at the same time. Joe Biden has put forth a slate of nominees to fill his cabinet, and it's crucial that we work on confirmations so that he can set up his administration. You know, the administration was very hollowed out in the waning days of the Trump administration with people resigning and leaving. We need a functioning federal government to respond to the multiple crises we face as a nation.
Well, what I've been hearing a lot is, Congress saying we can walk and chew gum at the same time. But as we know in government, that doesn't always happen. So how confident are you that the Senate could pull off this impeachment trial while doing all these other things while the country is facing many issues?
Well, it's going to require cooperation. And it's something that we have a constitutional duty to proceed with. And I believe we can put together a timetable that allows us to both work on confirmations so that President Biden can set up his administration, as well as proceed with an impeachment for inciting a violent insurrection against our democracy, the Capitol, and the Congress.
Safe to say you'll vote to convict, right?
I will see the trial through. That will always be the case. But I'm very familiar with the article of impeachment that's been passed by the House of Representatives and what it contains.
Well, Wisconsin's Republican Senator Ron Johnson, he was tweeting about the impeachment trial of the president who would be out of office then. And he said it's unconstitutional to have this for a private citizen. You have a law degree. So what do you think? Is this unconstitutional?
It is not unconstitutional, and I will remind viewers that not only is it an article of impeachment, but it references the 14th Amendment, third clause, which basically would say that anyone who incites an insurrection is not eligible to run for office again or hold office again in the future.
Have you talked to your Republican colleagues in the Senate? Do you think there's any chance of drumming up those 17 votes to get a conviction?
I certainly have heard any number of my Republican colleagues talk about their openness to hearing the case and expressing very grave concerns about what we all went through together on January 6th, where many of my colleagues narrowly missed a direct confrontation with insurrectionists who clearly intended to do harm to members of Congress in order to overturn the election and the will of the people.
I think the other major topic right now is the vaccine. And you've been critical of the federal vaccine rollout. And, you know, with the Biden administration, they haven't been tested on this yet. So I think it's easy for a Democrat to say they'll do such a better job. But one thing that Wisconsin is complaining about right now is not getting doses from the federal government. How confident are you that this will change, and how quickly?
Well, first of all, in the greater context of fighting this pandemic, I've been critical of the Trump administration since almost the beginning of the pandemic. There has been utter failure to really stand up and use the tools available to help protect the people of the United States, whether that was unleashing the full potential of the Defense Production Act, getting testing supplies and test kits and reagents to where they were needed. And the vaccine rollout seems to follow that same pattern. Now that President Biden is in office and is getting about the task of unleashing the full potential of the Defense Production Act, I think that we will see a lot more assistance provided to the local levels to get this done. And I do think we'll see dramatic changes because of that.
How soon, though, could that happen? Realistically, how soon do you think Wisconsin could get more vaccine?
Well, certainly it will help when we have an administration that is set up working with the president. But I do think that we will see fairly quick turnaround, especially in terms of the delivery of vaccines, especially because those are coming from the pharmaceutical companies producing the vaccines at the direction of the federal government, and doesn't rely on necessarily governmental logistics in order to get them to where they need to be.
The president put out a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. As you know, some Republicans are already very critical on this. How long do you think this will take to hash it out?
Well, first, I'm hopeful that we will work together to get the job done. Every member of the United States Senate has constituents who are struggling, who are suffering, who are falling ill, and who face issues like eviction or mortgage foreclosure. And so it's important that we work together to relieve those crises in each of our states. But we will try as hard as we can to work swiftly and get the bipartisan support the bill will need. If not, we know that the method that can be used is called budget reconciliation, and that will be hopefully a last resort, because I do hope that we can work together.
All right. Senator Baldwin, as always, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You can see my entire interview with the senator on our website, where we're talking about her efforts to get the Biden administration to buy American and the president's cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. That's on the upfront section of WISN.com. Coming up, the plan to vaccinate Wisconsin residents 65 and older. What you need to know for yourself or your parents. Plus, what some Republicans say is ahead for their party without Donald Trump in the White House.